I'm going to read a poem called Twin Spires from a book of mine called the Quimper Poems. I read this poem in Shakespeare & Co. in Paris with Notre Dame sort of looking over my right shoulder, and found that the audience somehow weren't responsive. And I was told afterwards by my French translator who shared the reading with me, René Agostini, that when the French seem to come across the word God, their eyes glaze over and they go into a kind of incomprehension, which is almost exactly the opposite of what he found when he read the same poem in the prison at Avignon, where the audience there was wildly attentive and many of them in tears. So that's how it goes. This is a poem in two parts, somewhat Dantesquely divided absolutely down the middle, with 365 lines being obviously the length of a year. It's divided into a Qinoth, or lamentation, and a Tehil, which is a song of joy, a psalm. And it's preceded by an epigraph which reads, Quimper Cathedral has two equal spires of granite. Both are pierced and piercing. One is for sorrow, the other for joy, and I can't tell which is which. Part 1, Qinoth. The question you asked, Pourquoi Auschwitz? Why did it happen? Is one that I can't dodge or hide from, is one we all must live with, Jews and Germans, each man in this century and the next. The smell will never come out of our noses, however much pomander we make out of culture, amnesia out of commerce. We are all children of the Holocaust as much as you who weren't even born till 10 years after it was over. It isn't the millions of deaths. They will be dead now in any case of strangled heart or carcinoma. It's the too bureaucratic zeal for poetry, music, commerce, law, for architecture, politics, war, free from all moral feeling, that is our curious century's soul and sign. The cross that goes against the sun and everything in nature. God must be blind to see them do it and not act. He must be dead to let them have their way like that, or else he perhaps might be a Nazi too. How could he bear to watch those empty trains fill up, to see the signals fall and hear the click of iron wheels across Europe move to his man-made hell? Is there an iron helmet where a heart should be? The nights in sidings stinking. The dead who cheated the Zyklon B. Was this because the Jews killed Jesus and is Auschwitz his revenge? The trains must run to time. The oiled ball bearings not run dry, neither the rubber stamps. The Jews must be delivered back to Pharaoh for him to work to death. Mothers with milk still in their breasts that ache to have the tender nipples sucked. Old men that wore the German uniform with pride and gave it honor, cowering now in trousers made for clowns. We have seen the newsreels. He can't say he hasn't seen them. And I leave till last, the last and lewdest charge. Children brought up to look on God as Father, to pray the prayers of the chosen, and to keep the law and Sabbath, with eyes that look on the world with hope as the photographs show us. Nellie, aged 4, Maxime, 3, and Frida Rice, 11 months. all gassed at Auschwitz on arrival. Most of the perpetrators of their deaths were fathers too, and no doubt fond ones. And the tears we shed are angry tears, and just. They trickle why and why and why down the disfigured faces that we turn to the spider centre of that railway network, because our tears know good and will not settle for less. They flow for good and not for reason, and their springs are in the heart. The eye that looks on barley beaten down by sacrilegious rain has its own rain for answer. The goodness, spent in vain, our lambs lament. They fill the fields with megalithic tears of Karnak, with open lilies falling at Arnhem, words as cold as a bitter east wind come out as angry as poppies and as feeble. Why does the sun not shine upon all this willed disfigurement? By what we look upon we can be hurt and blessed, and the twin spires that pierce the sky over Quimper have themselves been pierced. And we, who are not made of granite, have occasion to lament and have the means to do so. We have eyes to enjoy the comeliest of flowers they carry in procession, the pretty little girls, their feet and faces moving along the Odet towards the station, and the rails that run to Rennes, to Paris, Nancy, Breslau, on to the terminus at Auschwitz, deliberately stripped of hair and all things bright and beautiful. For each one Rachel weeps. For every daughter of Jerusalem who wept as he went by under his heavy swastika, the cross. The one who had wept for you and you wouldn't mourn. And in the poetry there must be tears of one sort or another as we lose what we love and love what we have to lose. They die and they leave behind the little shoes and ribbons and the dolls they carried with them. And their graves are only marked by typewriters. So where shall we release our tears for them? At the memorial camp, perhaps, or at the stations they passed through and sometimes stopped at. Perhaps at the place they started from, in every town of Europe. Yes, we have eyes to weep with, but haven't tears enough to weep for each of them. That's the enormity. The fears, too big for adults, fouling dreams and trust and games and underclothes. Tears for the bread they have to seek and do not find. The eyes that bulge, the ribs in full relief, the apathy of daily hunger, the terrible sight of shrunken flesh. And was it nothing to those they passed by? Was there any sorrow like unto their sorrow in the day of the Lord's fierce anger? See how they trample down the daughters of Judah as in a winepress. Their steps are everywhere hunted. In the streets they may not tread. Daylight is hostile. The enemy will not rest until the very last one is rooted out. He has the eye of an eagle, and an eagle's wings and talons. He is merciless in power, and in pride is dragon-hearted, proof against tears. Wealth will not placate him, nor will death. It is destruction of the very heart and soul and mind that he demands, very dismemberment. In heaps of shoes and spectacles and teeth and rags of dignity they carried. Even names gave way to tattooed numbers, hands that had been ringed and kissed, hands that had fiddled, drafted, woven, jewelled, sewn, are turned to shovels. Generous hands are turned to beggars. No one now dies of natural causes. Murder is free on the streets, exhaustion on the march, starvation anywhere, and suicide. The hunt is joined by bands of peasants eager for the kill, burnt alive by hundreds, buried alive by thousands, shot in the base of the brain by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands gassed in vans or in showers turned into pyramids of bodies. You're right. It is all too much for tears. We haven't humour enough to offer such tribute for each human tragedy. The tears run out. Even the horrid details fail to make us sick after a while. It is as if we are of little sympathy, and it is so soon used up. Pathos is rhetoric suited to a single loss, and tragedy particular. But this is a passion of statistics, and man's heart is not equal to responding, nor man's mind to finding fitting words to comprehend it all. Jews because they were Jews, gypsies just for being gypsies, the learned for their learning, and the backward for their backwardness. I told you, we who are under Christ have necks that are under persecution, restlessly labour to cultivate a land that is yet to come. Our tears are prayers, and others' pains are ours. Our lives and not our deaths are marked with a cross, and on our hearts we wear the curse of Judah. I hold your hand. I look into your eyes. I say, I love you, and I do not lie. I look into your face and Auschwitz, knowing that God, our God, is in both of them. Thus we must weep, and every tear must wear a little yellow star, each chosen one of them, and say, Amen. Part 2, Tehil, the Psalm. My answer to you is a question. Where are they now, the little flowers that bloomed and passed into the ovens of Auschwitz? If you can't answer that, there is no reason in your tears or in your anger either. Is it your faith to see humanity summed up in nothing but heaps of skeletons stuck together? How could you say so, and yet dance? How could you teach your son to clap his hands for joy as you do at Cornemuse and Bombard? Why do you comb the ashes from your hair and make the earth sing praises on your plate? And why, if it's meaningless, do you ask the question? I tell you, you know why. You can't be Sarah's daughter and not know why. The one who giggled when she heard her baby prophesied. You can't be a daughter of Rachel and Rebekah and not know why. Can't be a mother of Israel, sister of Hannah, cousin of Miriam, and that Jewess who had to flee the pogrom at Bethlehem, whose heart was pierced with a sword to see her own son pierced with a spear. You know what life is, if you have given it. And you know God if you have felt his loving pulse beating inside you in the wild dance he gave us to make life with. Just count them getting out of cattle trucks, thousands on thousands from the teeming womb of Sarah, loins of Abraham, more than the stars in number. Count them, these mothers' joys and fathers' pleasures, and know that tragedy can only be because comedy precedes it, and still must be its epilogue. Look, if you have ever known love. Look deep as you dare. Look beyond hope. Look through despair. Look through the drowning tears that can't drown love or quench it. Love is strong as death, is stronger. Look through the tears. Can you see it now? See, they have come from every nation, here by train on pilgrimage for the festival, and as the sun rises, they rise too, dressed in their festal costume. Look at the yellow stars of asphodel in their hair. Can you see them and not shake with utter gladness? See how they form their groups for the procession, each with a banner that the leader carries. This one says Szeged, this one Marco. Look, there is Nantes and Rennes, and here is Quimper, its white lamb on azure, crowned with ermine. The men have Yiddish beards under their Breton hats. The girls and women glory in white coifs of lace. The angels are amazed to see such work. Their dress and aprons both of sable satin. In their hands are sprays of delicatest heather. Listen. The instruments are tuning. Local bands make local music. Drumsticks throb the rhythms of the region. Listen, it is the sounds of instruments of peace. It is a pure dawn chorus. Off they go in order of the camp. Girls and their garlands wear their honour with a smile. Drums summoning the feet to show their cunning. Never till now have notes so subtly interlaced themselves with others, never fingers fettled before so featly. The air is cut 1,000 ways, the colours court each other. The way they take is lined with millions. Every so often one comes from the crowd to greet a long-lost father or a bride, and then they dance and kiss as never men kissed and danced before. Now there is singing too in all the tongues of Babel, songs of joy and of deliverance. Where are your sorrows now? Where are your sulking questions? I hear you joining in the singing. You can't help it, can you? And you sing in Hebrew that you never sang in before. You sing, in God there are no dead. There is only life, and life is endless and unstinting. Hear how he makes the bagpipe bawl and skirmish, and at last the buggers are dancing for him. Don't you recognize him yet? His very touch turns water into wine and sadness into joy. He is the force of resurrection and of spring, and all the dead shall rise in him who ever loved in life. Look at the wire. Look at it covered in ivy now, convolvulus, sweet peas, clematis. His words to us are morning glories, his tears of joy, solid as granite, such as they build cathedrals out of. Now they move into the marketplace, to the hall of timber and crystal. Who made it that shape? Built like an ark with mighty crossbeams, fully open to the sight of heaven, so at night there is a market of stars. By day, the sun between the spires pours glory down through the glass. It's full of flowers of every colour, full of the fruits of fertile earth and every taste, full of the good life naturally gives. Those that have kept the fast in Auschwitz are now to keep the feast. See how they kiss each other. See them embracing 2 million shaloms multiplied by 2 other millions. You asked in Quimper, why Auschwitz? And I say in Lincoln, why not? Why Quimper? Why Europe? Why Israel? They might so easily never have been. Auschwitz was paradise because God was there. Ask the dead if you don't believe me. Ask him yourself in the inner tent of your heart where the Shekinah shines, your heart that breaks like a dry matzah. Ask him if he was there. Ask him if he's ever seen his children suffer. Ask him if he knows the number of the dead in Sobibor, Belsen, Dachau, Mauthausen, Birkenau, Buchenwald, Theresienstadt, Treblinka. Ask if he knows their names, their parentage, their generations back to Adam, and ask him if he knows their present whereabouts, and ask him if his joy is in their joy. Ask him to tell you of those who on their deliverance died of joy. Whatever religion we parade, our love is not as big as his. Our love is not as simple. Look how he claps his hands at the sight of children dancing. Look at the tears of ready joy, the tears of pleasure running down his nose. See the shoulders shake with delight, the smiling wrinkles. How unsophisticated is our God. How close to his simple creatures. What did he make life for, if not for pleasure? Why does he fill our hearts with courage, make us want to carry all the troubles of his world on our own very feeble shoulders? Why are we made so beautiful and brave, and yet may end up soap or glue? You must hear the testimony of the dead who never spoke up at Nuremberg, of Job Rabinovich, who saw his sons shot in the head before his own eyes, learnt to fight others for rotten food, and sleep in his own filth, rejected God who had rejected him, but still somehow remained a Jew. When he was gassed, he climbed on others for a gasp of air, a last one, clinging to life, though life was nothing but despair now, till the choking took him. When they took him on a pallet to the oven and left him to bake like a loaf, he was surprised, exceedingly surprised, at all the folks who were with him there, and the good fresh bread and good red wine, and the quality of the singing. Are you all angels? He asked the one beside him. No, this one is an angel. I'm from Bialystok myself. And this, he said, this one is drunk as Noah. This is our host.